Hi guys, good afternoon. So it's your girl Casey Inglis. I'm here today and I just wanted to talk to you all about the topic called sex. I am in my late 20s. Yeah, I'm in my late freaking 20s. I can't believe that I'm saying that because I feel like just the other day I turned 21. Like, I remember it so freaking vividly, especially given the events that happened on my 21st birthday. But years have gone by, and all of a sudden, I am 28 years old. So, safe to say I'm in my late 20s. And so, I think there has been enough personal experiences for me to talk about the conversation of sex, at least from my experience. And so yeah, let's deep dive and dive into the topic in the world of sex from the perspective of your girl, Casey Inglis. So I wanted to talk about this particular subject because I just think it's important as a young woman, especially as a woman in her early teens or a woman approaching the age of 20 and moving forward. I think that the topic of sex just needs to be discussed. And I think it's individual. And I think that that journey should be unique for each and every single woman, for each and every individual. And so for me, growing up in the Christian faith, um, sex was viewed as something that was only to be had within the context of marriage. And if you were a young adult or a teen, growing up, the Christian's perspective was that abstinence from sex was the only way, I guess, to be saved and to be seen as worthy in the eyes of God. And so it was a struggle for the young adults and teens who were feeling the frustrations and the temptations of sex, especially for the young adults who were being exposed to certain things such as the media, the things that we were seeing on TV, all the girls in the sexy bikinis, and possibly being exposed to pornography, and seeing all those things and the effects that it had on the young adult body, and the juxtaposition of what's happening in your body and what your faith is telling you and what your mind is telling you. Like, your mind is saying, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be feeling this way. Oh my gosh, like, I shouldn't be having these forms of arousal. And when it's only natural to feel a certain way when a beautiful woman appears, or when it's only natural to have a certain desire when a handsome man is in your presence, or you see a handsome man on screen and whatnot. And so I definitely struggled with that growing up. Like, the mental juxtaposition of, like, oh my gosh, like, I was exposed to pornography at a young age. I also began masturbation at, I want to say, my early teen years. But I tell you, every single time that I felt like I needed to be Catholic in my young adult teen years, because every single time I wanted to confess to a priest, like, Father, forgive me for I have sinned, like, there was a heavy weight, there was a sense of burden, there was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Like, how did this affect me in my life in the future? Like, how is God gonna see me? It was like that freaking deep for me. Like my body was telling me yes, but my mind was always saying, girl, no, don't do it. And I was like, I ain't gonna do it, I ain't gonna do it. And I came back after that climax, like, I did it. I did it. I masturbated. Like, it was that for me growing up, and that was like the struggle between my mind and my bodily urges for years upon years, even into my early 20s. And so I definitely relate to a young Christian who may be going through that particular journey in their sexual awakening, in their sexual walk with themselves. And so, which is why I want to stress the point that your sexual journey should be individual, and how it enters sex with faith. I feel like even that should be individual. Despite the sermons that you have heard, despite the particular like things that have been told to you, I think searching the word for yourself, listening to the voice of God for yourself, and discerning his voice for yourself is definitely something that is individual. Um, I know for a fact that the messages that have come from the church in regards to sexual abstinence have been um, with the greatest of care in some sense. In some sense, um, for the church. I mean, there's like two sides to the sword, and I don't want to necessarily dive into the other. I mean, some could say that it's also a form of control over the minds and the bodies of the church, but which is again why I say everything should be like your walk with God and your perspective on sex and the things that you are willing to do in regards to sex should be individual, and based on your walk in relationship with God at whatever age you are. However, to stick on this particular scope right here, I just want to say I think that some of the advice given by certain religious leaders in regards to abstinence, in regards to sexual safety prior to marriage, and even the advice that has been given during marriage, I think some of it was for the spiritual and physical safety of members of the church. However, it did become very confining. It like the rules concerning sex for young adults and even young adults entering into marriage seemed to have been very like, oh my gosh, this seems almost like a prison. Like, what can I do to release these bodily urges? What can I do to express myself in a sexual way? And there seemed to be like the answer to everything seemed to be no, 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 no at the time. And so there's that. But just like moving away from the topic of Christianity or religion and sex, but just going into my individual sexual journey, I want to say that for me, when I got past the shame of my sexual expression, I found a sense of freedom in my sexual journey. And I'm not saying that I haven't done every single thing, and I haven't explored all the avenues and all the roads in my sexual journey, and I'm still very much excited for what lies ahead within that road for me. But I'm also out here taking my time, and that's partly personal and partly still in regards to just the relationship that I have with myself and also the relationship that I have with God. I just want my sexual journey to be something that I have put thought into, something that I I haven't just taken for granted or just done willy-nilly. Like, I want my sexual journey to be, I don't want to look back on it with regret. And so I am being cautious, but I'm also in a space where I am more sexually free, and I feel just, and I think that I'm just like so happy to be in a space and a place to say that at this age. However, when I did get past the shame, I found a sense of freedom, to just realize and recognize that yes, you are a sexual being. You are, as in as much as you are a godly woman, in as much as you are a woman who has standards, in as much as you are a woman who um, has goals and ambitions and wants her life to go in a certain way, you still are a sexual being who is somewhat prone to sexual desires. And so, and I had to like remind myself and tell myself, like, okay, that's okay to have these sexual desires, to have these sexual wants, and to sometimes and to not withhold yourself from certain wants and desires in the sexual realm. I still do have many I don't want to say constraints, because that's just, that word just sounds like another sense of like a prison type deal. But I still have certain rules and standards for myself in regards to sexual exploration and sexual things that I will do at this point in my life. However, I just really adore and love the fact that I am able to finally say that I can be free in this space to even talk about sex, which was a thing for me. Like, even just the discussion of it would be something that I would want to shy away from in my past self. And so just to be in a space where I can say that I can freely talk about sex from my personal knowledge is like, oh, certain chains have been broken. Like, it's just like, yay. A yay for me, because it honestly was not mentally conducive to growth and health to be in a space where everything concerning the topic of sex felt like being in a mental prison, being in a physical prison. Like, if it just had to do with sex, it was a no. And so to turn those no's into a yes, or into a maybe, or into I'm getting there, is literally, it feels like a breath of fresh air. It feels like a sense of relief for me personally. And so yeah, I'm really just happy to be in that space. However, so with this newfound freedom, with this newfound sense of self in my sexual journey, I have wanted to just educate myself more on the things that I want to do, on the woman that I am and the woman that I want to be in my sexual body and in this sexual space. So I have been reading books, and I have been just like, even just questioning myself on, even if it's theoretically, like, even if the answer that I may tell myself right now is different from the things that I will say yes or no to when the situation, or if the situation presents itself, I still think it's like just good to have those conversations with oneself about sex, because it just lets you know where you are now, and it just lets you know like your thought process and the person that you actually are in a sexual space are not necessarily always the same. Like they're not necessarily always aligned. And so, because like honestly, the things that I said that I would never do, certain things that I said I would never do, certain things that some things I thought I would never do, certain things I thought were completely off limits for me are yeses for me, whether that be in the realm of marriage or even in my singlehood. Like it's a yes or it's a no or it's a maybe. And I think at this point, realizing the freedom that can be had within the sexual space, I think nothing is completely a no, but everything is a discussion. Everything is a maybe. Everything is a uh, let me explore who I am in this realm, or just give me a bit more time to figure out the whys of my no, the whys of my maybe uh, precautions as to why I'm feeling as though this may be a complete no for me, or the reasons why this is a maybe for me. And maybe we can work from there until a yes. And so I definitely think that as young women, and it took me a while to get to a place of I need to explore this part of myself. I need to explore who I am in this space, in this realm. And I need to explore myself as a sexual being. And so I think that it took me a while to get there, but I did get there. And so if I can help another woman to just, or a young teen to just find sexual freedom, even at an earlier age, even if it's just mentally and not necessarily acting on the things. Like, I just think just to be open to the topic, the discussion, and to that world mentally, uh, even though you're abstaining physically, uh, is good for young men and women. Just to get a certain education on on who you are and who you can be in this space, and making sure that the decision and that your yeses in this space are truly your yeses, and that your no's in this space are uh, placed on firm foundation, and that your maybes are have a decent explanation. Not that they need to be explained, because your no's could just be your no's and your yeses could just be your yeses, but at least for your mental you just need to know why you're saying no, why you're saying yes, and why it's a maybe. And so if I can help a woman on that journey find sexual freedom, even if it's mental sexual freedom at an earlier age in her life, that will for me just be yay. There was purpose in my speaking about this today. There was purpose in the shame that I felt at a young adult. There was purpose in the that battle that I had between my physical self and the religious society that I grew up in, and or that religious mind of mine. And it will just let me know that there is purpose in my walk and in the journey that I have gotten to in regards to claiming my sexual freedom. And so yeah, I definitely think that, so self-education, and whether that be through reading books, whether that be through talking to yourself, just about your yeses and your nos, and being more open mentally with the topic of sex, being open with um, the woman who you think you will be and the woman that you actually will be in that space. Just having that discussion is is helpful. It really is. I think apart from reading books, listening to the experiences of others can also be very helpful in a sexual space, especially those who are probably from a similar a background, those who have had similar experiences in regards to growing up and feeling that shame and feeling that guilt that may have come about through sexual exploration in one's youth, and getting to a sense of freedom. You can find commonality with those people, but you could also receive some advice, for they maybe ahead of you in certain realms within that world. And so just to get some advice from them and figure out if that's something you want to do, if what they have done something you want to do, if um, the insight that they've received from the certain experiences that they've had, if that's a road that you want to take as well. And so that could just be very helpful as well. So seeking that advice from peers, from elders, from even those in your religious community. My advice from for seeking advice within your religious community is seeking advice from somebody who is open-minded, somebody who understands that, yes, even though it's preached that sex should only be had within the context of marriage, someone who's going to give you the reality of what is taking place during in the world, and even in the church, despite what is being preached. And so I would say that, and also listening to podcasts, like that's also just another form of that's also just another form of receiving advice and just opening up your mind uh, to the concept and the idea of sex. What else would I say, or do I want to say here while I'm here? I think if you're in a relationship, I think just having that communication with your partner as to where you are sexually, what your boundaries are, and also just letting them know to have a sense of compassion and understanding with your process of growth within that space, given where you are, given your age, given your mental openness, given your physical willingness. Because my journey is not necessarily the journey of someone else's. There's so many things that can hinder one's sexual freedom. There is the sexual trauma that may have taken place for some, and if you're in a relationship, then that may hinder, or even it can cause certain what's the word I'm looking for? It can cause friction in a relationship. It can cause the person who has experienced that trauma to be just a little bit more reserved in that relationship, or even a bit more promiscuous in that relationship. And either it can have its advantages and disadvantages. Well, I think the reserved one may have a bit more disadvantages than advantages. But yeah, so just even discussing sexual trauma that you may have experienced, discussing the reasons why you have certain boundaries, discussing your religious beliefs and how it impacts your sexual exploration and freedom, discussing if you have no religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs attached to your sexual identity, discussing who you are as a sexually free person, and how that may not necessarily make you something negative, that may be spoken about you or thought about you from someone who doesn't understand necessarily your childhood or your identity as a woman or man in a sexual space. And so wherever it is that you're coming from in the world of sex, I think that should be discussed with your partner. And so your reservations, your wants, your boundaries, your desires, all of those things should be discussed with your partner. Sometimes I think even before partnership, before heading into a space of sexual exploration with another physical body, one should discuss those things so there's just a clear line as to what you will and what you won't do, and as to what both of you are willing to get out of that sexual experience and to give in that sexual experience when creating intimacy and building trust in that relationship.